This is November 2015, paper 2, question number 9, and it's a section B question, so it's got several parts, and it's about statistics, linear regression in the first instance. So we've got the number of years in a reserve starting from year 0, and the population of coyotes is growing over this period of years, and we're asked to find the equation of regression, the line of best fit. This calculator paper, it's paper 2, which means that you should be inputting this into your calculator with the list functions, which is under stat and edit, and letting your calculator do the calculation part of this. Once you've typed it in, it should look like that. Just always worth checking that you've got the right number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of data. You don't want to drop marks because you've just typed something wrong on your calculator. Once you've done that, you go to the Stat menu, and in there you'll find an option for linear regression, AX plus B, underneath Calc. You want to choose that, and it will give you all the information you need to answer part A. If you've got your calculator set up correctly, then this is what it'll look like. If you don't get these R and R squared values appearing, if there's just the A and the B values, then you haven't got the diagnostic switched on. You can do that from the catalogue by selecting diagnostic on. Although I'm not sure if they're going to be much use in this question, because I've only read part A, which is asking us to find the values for A and B. And you can see they're written there. A is 13.4 to 3 sig fig, and B is 137. Part B, use the regression equation to estimate the number of coyotes in the reserve after 7 years. So the best way to do that is when you type into your calculator, when you tell it you want to do the linear regression from the Calc menu, there's an option to store the regression equation as one of the y variables. Should look like this. So into this box, you type y1. Let's see if I do that. And that will save it in the graph menu where you would usually write the equations that you want to graph. That avoids getting any rounding errors that you might get from using these numbers, and it saves a bit of time that you would have to do if you wanted to write down all 9 decimals places that are given from the calculator. So once you've done that, you can go into the graph. It should give you a linear graph, straight line, and you can use the underneath the Calc menu. There's an option called value, and you just tell it the value that you want to use is when t is 7 or when x is 7, because it uses x as a default. Once you've done that, you should get an answer that looks like this. I've typed x is 7 there, which means my y value is 231. So you should really be doing this on more space, but so that you can see I'm squeezing it into here. Obviously section B is not answered on the page. In the actual exam you should answer on a separate sheet, which is provided. The answer here is that the number of coyotes, which is C, is equal to 231. Part C, there's more information here. F is the number of foxes after T years. The number of foxes is modelled by this equation. Find the number of foxes in the reserve on the 1st of January 1995. I haven't paid much attention to when these things were starting, so it's starting in the 1st of January 1995, and it's asking us now for the number of foxes in the reserve at 1995 according to this function. So what that essentially means is it's asking us to evaluate that function in blue when t is 0. So that's 2000 over 1 plus 99 e to the minus k0. Should be reasonably obvious that if it's minus k0, then that's just e to the 0, which is just 1, which means that f of 0 is the same thing as 2000. I mean, you could type this into your calculator, but it's fairly trivial to work out without 2000 over 1 plus 99, or 2000 over 100, or 20. So, according to this model, there were 20 coyotes in the reserve in January 1995. After 5 years, there were 64 coyotes in the... Oh, sorry, it's foxes. That's why the numbers don't match. So the first question was all about foxes, it was all about coyotes, and this section is all about foxes, so the numbers are different. D. After 5 years, there were 64 foxes in the reserve. Find K. So, again, we're evaluating. We've got 5 years, so T is 5. And I'm evaluating. Well, I don't need to evaluate f of 5. That's what I'm told. I know that f of 5 is equal to 64. So I'm going to take this equation and solve it when t is 5. So it's 1 plus 99 e to the minus 5t. Okay. Now you have got enough mathematics to solve this question algebraically. However, this is the calculator paper. You should be getting your calculator to solve these sorts of questions. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to plot two graphs. I'm going to plot the graph y equals 64, which will obviously be a horizontal line. And I'm going to plot the graph y equals 2000 over 1 plus 99 e to the minus 5x as the variable. That's what the calculator is expecting. And I'm going to see where those two graphs cross. So once you've typed in your two graphs, y1, y2, into the graph menu, underneath calc you'll find an option called intersection, and if you're following the instructions it will give you the intersection, which means I now have my k value as that x value that's written there. So that's k is equal to 0.237. Squeeze in here at the bottom. When you're answering these section B questions with your graphical calculator, or the section A questions with your graphical calculator, any of the questions with your graphical calculator, you're expected to sketch the graph. So the graph, as I would sketch it, and I will sketch it up here, is there's the line 64, and I would label it 64, and there's the line y equals, well, I'm going to call it y equals f of x, f of k. Save me writing the whole thing out. It's this function here again, and this is the point here that I've just found. The k is 0.237. Okay, the last part is during which year were the number of coyotes the same as the number of foxes? So I've got a regression equation from part A, which is c equals 13.4t plus 137, where c is the number of coyotes, and then we've also got f is 2000 over 1 plus 99e to the minus 0.237. That was our value of k from part D times t. So I've got two equations and I want to find out when they're equal. So it's another case of plotting that in a graph. Once you've graphed those two things, they'll look something like this. And you just go to the calc menu again and look for the intersect button, which is number 5. Select the two curves, follow the instructions, and your calculator will tell you that this intersection point here is at 12.0. So time is equal to 12 years. And that's your final answer. This is a good example of a section B question that ties together the 4 parts at the end. So often section B questions build and build and build on each other. Sometimes they build, one part follows into the next, follows into the next. This was an example where the first part, part A, and the last part, the penultimate part, part D, tie together so that you can answer the last part by using my equation from part A and my results, the minus 2.237 that I found in part D, and using those two things in order to get my value for t in part E. So it's very important when you answering section B questions that you think about how the parts are related, because they nearly always are.